From JBS Studios in Greater New York, this is the JBS News Update with Teisha Bader.
I'm Teisha Bader with the JBS News Update for Friday, July the 11th, 2025. An IDF officer was killed yesterday in Gaza. The IDF said today he is 21-year-old Captain Re'i Biran, a team commander in the Golani Brigade's reconnaissance unit. The IDF continues its operations in Gaza and said today that together with the Shin Bet, eliminated a commander in the Islamic Jihad terror organization who directed numerous terror operations against IDF forces, and it said infiltrated Israeli territory during the murderous massacre on October the 7th. The IDF later today wrote that it eliminated 6 senior terrorists from Hamas's naval commando unit who had planned terror activities at sea against Israeli civilians and security forces, and said that several were involved in planning the brutal October 7th massacre. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu arrived back in Israel today following his 4-day diplomatic visit to Washington, which the Prime Minister called an important one. As we reported to you, the Prime Minister met twice at the White House with President Donald Trump, where discussions focused on Iran and on Gaza and efforts to return the hostages, with both leaders expressing hope that the 60-day ceasefire agreement that is currently on the table can come to fruition. The 50 hostages who remain held by terror group Hamas in Gaza have now been captive for 644 days. The National Education Association, which is the largest teachers union in the United States, narrowly passed a non-binding measure at its annual representative assembly this past weekend to not use, endorse, or publicize materials from the Anti-Defamation League or participate in ADL programs. A statement from the union did not directly reference the reasons why, but the website for the Drop the ADL from Schools movement accuses the ADL of distorting the definition of anti-Semitism, claims that it pushes educational policy that defends Israel at the expense of the rights of Palestinians, and claims that it attacks schools with bad faith accusations of anti-Semitism in order to silence, and it writes to punish constitutionally protected criticism of Israel and the political ideology of Zionism. Well, the ADL condemned the vote, saying such a measure is stripping schools of trusted, time-tested resources that help educators teach about the Holocaust, address anti-Semitism, and combat all forms of hate. And CEO Jonathan Greenblatt wrote, sends a message to Jewish students and teachers across the country that their safety and belonging are somehow less important. Greenblatt writes, in any climate, but especially one where anti-Semitism is rising to unprecedented levels within our K-12 system, that's simply unacceptable and dangerous. The ADL also posted a petition on their website urging the teachers union to change course. The measure will now be referred to the union's executive committee, which will have a final say. And staying with the ADL, it shared the findings today from a new survey to assess the national mood toward anti-Semitism after recent anti-Semitic attacks, including in Washington and Boulder. While most surveyed condemned the attacks, nearly 1 in 4 Americans, 24%, it found, said they either somewhat agree or strongly agree that the incidents were understandable. 22% saying the incidents were not anti-Semitic, 15% saying that they somewhat agree or strongly agree that the violence was necessary, and 13% saying that the incidents were justified. Jonathan Greenblatt saying, as the Jewish community is still reeling from recent attacks that killed 3 people, it's unacceptable that 24% of Americans find this unspeakable violence, quote unquote, understandable. The majority of Americans who agree that anti-Semitism is a serious problem must ensure our elected officials act now. Taking a look at our programming for tonight on JBS for Friday, July the 11th, Live Shabbat services are coming up at 6 o'clock from New York City's Central Synagogue, followed by Shabbat services from the Hampton Synagogue. At 8:30, Justin Pine speaks with author, scholar, and former Knesset member Dr. Aliza Lavie about her book, Iconic Jewish Women. At 9:30, Abigail Pogrebin speaks with author, journalist Yossi Klein Halevi about the Israeli psyche, this moment in history, and what comes next. At 10:30, it's a replay from the Hampton Synagogue, followed by a replay from Central. And coming up next, a look at this week's Torah Portion. And that's the JBS News Update for Friday, July the 11th, 2025. I'm Teisha Bader. Shabbat Shalom. Am Yisrael Chai.